Hello, everybody, and welcome to the leading B2B conference in esports, gaming, and more, all with DGC MEA. And of course, big shout out goes to our strategic partner, Media City. Today, we have a lot of eye opening stories, workshops, and all more in esports and game development, and lots of stuff to pretty much inspire you in esports and game development and more into the both industries. So stay tuned and let's start with DGC MEA Day 1.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for being here with me today. Our company name is Territory Studio. We are a creative studio that started in London over 10 years ago now. It's our 11th year. And then we expanded into other locations in America, like San Francisco, New York. And we have plans to continue to expand into different regions and areas. Our studio started as a creative shop for motion graphics and design and digital design. And soon enough, we started finding our putting into films and graphics for films, especially graphics that tell a certain narrative, a certain story. And I want to touch a little bit more about some of those film projects and other projects that are intrinsically linked with the work that we do for video games. I'm going to be showing you a little bit of like where we come from and what kind of a work we do for games. We have from front end, cinematics, and whatnot. I'm going to be touching on that. And then we're going to jump into case studies where I'm going to be showing you how the same way that we operate in certain other projects completely applies to games. And we're going to be doing some comparisons as well. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into sharing my screen. So let's get started. As I was saying, Territory Studio is a creative shop where we started in London and we expanded to the Americas. Our main industry, or the industry that most everyone knows us for, is films. And as you can see here, there are many different films, many different scripts, stories, many different directors' visions. And what we do is we help that director vision thanks to our graphic design and creative skill set. We have different films which will need very different type of graphics. Obviously, the same graphics or the same tone that you're going to be designing for Spider-Man are not going to be the same that Zoolander needs in their films. So what we do with them is we help them with graphics that live on set. We also do visual effects for some of those films, and also title designs. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about that. We're going to be bringing the films back because I think they're very relevant to the way that we work and what defines as a studio. But today we're here to talk about games. And the great thing about games, and this is something I learned when before I was a territory at the beginning, I was with Activision and worked with projects for Nintendo. I've been a gamer all my life. And it was great to see how the video games industry could welcome someone from the advertising film industry into the game development pipeline. I've always been in love with interfaces and motion graphics and graphic design that moves and has a purpose. And the good thing about games is a purpose. While when we're designing for a film, you're going to see that once and it's going to just be seen in one shot, sometimes not even a sequence, and you won't see it again. For games, it's the opposite. You actually going to be seeing that every day that you open that game. And that goes from the front end, which is the first thing that you see, and is very important, all of the menus, to other in-game UI aspects, and of course, cinematics. You can see here some of them. And I will be touching on each one and why for us are relevant. The first thing you see in a game is the front end. The first thing you see is a menu. That's how you get to interact and get into what you want to be doing. And each one, like the films, each one needs its own style, its own operating system needs to be built from scratch. And this is something that we really enjoy doing. We're going to be seeing a couple of case studies a little bit later. But another one that is very exciting, especially now, thanks to other mediums like AR and VR, is all of the heads-up displays, visual anchors that you have while you're playing the game. Some of them need to be invisible, and others the complete opposite. They have a lot of functionalities, and they need to again serve a big purpose in the game. With those, as I was saying, virtual reality and augmented reality applications are becoming very interesting to explore, as you now are not limited to see that square in front of you where we've been, as you can see in these examples, adding elements, but you now have other ways to interact. And this is something we've been pushing even while we kept that framing. And you can see it here with Horizon Zero Dawn, in terms of how you actually manipulate things that are locked and within that the 3D space, whatever is in the environment or a character. And we're going to be talking a little bit more about some of the examples that I want to show you today about those. And then you have a big one for us as well as a motion graphics and CGI studio, the cinematics. The opportunity for us to really cover a lot of narrative, a lot of like mission briefs, something that we could do with certain animations, sometimes with game engines, sometimes pre-rendered, and most recently we're starting to see the lines blurred in here, thanks to new technologies that allow us to do more at a higher quality level on those cinematics. And you can see in this case like how the narrative is so important, and how we need also a style for each of those games that is completely different and has, you know, all of that language implemented in there, language that also you will see while you're playing the game. So intrinsically connected, both of those as well. And then you have more and more. You have from titles, trailers with our editorial team, branding elements, key art, print, billboards, covers like we did for Godfall. You can see here titles that we're going to touch later on at the end of the presentation with the new Spider-Man title, or other titles or branding, in this case more identity, like we did for Cyberpunk, Criterion, and so on. So we even designed props. I want to talk about props now, and how designing props for films, which we do always with that CGI aspect, it's becoming more important as well in the games development process. Territory Studio is a studio that's a bit of one of its kind. We were clearly divided by real brand products, digital products like cars, um, digital things that are like applications, or different things for fintech. The commercial wall, how you need to sell a product through a 30-second commercial. And then you have on the other end what we call like a bit more of a playground, which is the films, the games. And they're our playground because each one will bring like a completely different take, a new script, a new style, a new world that needs to be created. Is that realm of fantasy versus real world? Is that Hollywood versus Silicon Valley? And this balance actually keep us very relevant, because we're constantly having to flex our creative muscle, especially for films and games. Each film wants a new thing that they never see. And each game wants a new way of interaction, or new designs. And you need to do it. It's not like a brand or product that will live for years and you have to continue to update it. Is also those brand and real products from Silicon Valley, and like innovation, new technologies that allow us to have a very good sense of what's happening now, in order to be a bit more accurate when we are speculating on those designs that are slightly more futuristic for a film that may be set in 50 years. So they both fit one another, and having that studio being a multidisciplinary studio that not only does one thing, is what not only keeps our talent very engaged to know that they're working on this film today, but maybe in a couple of months they're working on a game or on a car project or in this commercial. This is sort of a variety of things that we have going on that allow us to have this slightly wider periphery of vision, let's say. And it's all touching on those 3 points. We always say that we're definitely telling stories. We're supporting key narrative points on games and films, and we do this through design. But we also support and invent new ways to interact with technology. Sometimes technology that doesn't exist, and technology is such an important part of our creative process because thanks to new technologies, we're able to design new stories. So it's all like a self-fitting perfect circle here, and that will define territory. But what better than these words than a quick show reel to show you what we do, and then we catch up into case studies very soon.
What do you want, Joe?
I want to ask you some questions.
Target is Brad Davis. Initiating strike.
Initiating what now?
Let the hunt for Halliday's Easter egg begin.
That went well.
Okay, so as you can see in the reel, of course, lots of films, but every single graphic that you see there, it can be part of the game. And that's what I want to talk about today. We want to be jumping and linking different projects, from game projects to very, very similar case studies. And one of the first ones, because this last year we've got to work on the Avengers game with Crystal Dynamics and Square Enix, is like the Marvel franchise. We've been working with them for now quite a while, and these are some of the films that we worked with. Thanks to our good friend, production designer Charles Wood, we started to work with Captain America: The Winter Soldier back in London. Then as we moved to the West Coast, we continued to work with them on the new Avengers: Infinity War, Endgame. We were shooting in Atlanta. Just having these recurrent teams, having like the same art departments, having, it's almost like you have that, you're part of that family with Marvel Studios, and we're very grateful for them to just allow us to do what we love, which is creating interfaces and creating these universes, helping them with the world building. As you can see here, these are some of the graphics that we did back for Age of Ultron, and I want to just focus on why this is so important. Not only because this could be a game, this could be part of a VR experience or whatnot, but it's important because there's a lot of people that they actually look at this complexity and in some of those designs, and they say, well, this is not useful. This is now, how do you use that? It's not actually a graphic or an interface that we're creating for you to use. To begin with, Iron Man has Jarvis. We can digest lots of information. So it's not for a human to be understanding and being able to run all of this data. But we also achieve this complexity because we don't need to be thinking function first. And this sometimes is contradictory, especially to other more functional products like games, but allows us to invert this process and say, what can be visually appealing and how it can be very exciting, because we're talking about Iron Man, we're talking about Tony Stark, high-end technology, AI. Sometimes just looking at things from not the functional side first, but the visual appealing angle allows us to find happy accidents and useful ways to then resolve some more plausible interactions for games, for cars, for other like very, very functional products. So films allow us to do that. We don't need to design something that needs to be perfectly matched for someone to be using it every day. It's just for one shot. It's just to build that world that the director wants to create, and that's kind of a helping our minds constantly having to be refreshed and get new ideas. The importance of games and films, like similarities in this case, is that each one and each character in the Avengers needed its own palette, its own style and personality, and this is what happened with Dr. Banner. As you can see, very different, different palette, different typography, different type of line work, a whole new art style guide for a new character, like you will do in a game, like we do in a game, right? When we have a different faction. This is for Dr. Cho. Doctor very much focused on high-end technologies, so having to not only give her that palette and the new style, but also an approach to new tissue regeneration, technologies, 3D printing, all sorts of organic matter. And that's why it needed its own. It's important that we give them its own colors, its own styles, because when you zoom out, as you can see here, you can clearly see what's part of Dr. Banner, what's part of Dr. Cho, what's the Queen Jet, what's the different style for Iron Man. And even if these characters are not in the room, you can identify by the graphics that they are maybe there or they are working together. You associate these styles with a character, which we feel is the exactly same thing that we do with the games. These end up creating these libraries that define this specific style. They are modular systems, of course, and certain UX and UI rules continue to apply. Different headers will have to maintain different font size, different style, different colors. And this is exactly how you achieve then a whole set like this one, which is the Iron Man set. You need other sets, like this was for Avengers Infinity War, for the new Milano, the new Guardians of the Galaxy spaceship. New palette, in this case a palette that needed to be achieved by different screens. We got it wrong at the beginning. As you can see at the bottom here is where we started, and we knew the palette, but we started applying the palette on each screen, not really understanding. And that was like a good tip from Charles on how the production designer, on how he wanted to achieve the color palette in the spaceship, not in each screen. So then you can see why we had to tweak it, and how there's also thought on those styles and what they do. We do this with different softwares like After Effects, Illustrator, Cinema 4D for the 3D, and now like other like real-time Unity and Unreal. But the good thing these days is that all of this is software that is very accessible. I remember when I was learning graphic design, when I was learning all of that, I didn't have the tools available that new generations have now. So I can see how the new generations are going to bring a massive improvement to our industries, thanks to having all of these accessible softwares and also like the willing to learn them. I think this is a point worth being aware of. Where our graphics go in both games and films, they go in those places where they interact with. And I wanted to show you this because lots of people don't know, like screens like those are actually phones attached to these. Let me show you this, attached into these areas of when we are shooting these films. And again, these graphics will eventually be the same sort of a graphics that you will have to do if you have a spaceship in a game and you need to bring some functionalities to it. So I thought that I wanted to show you this because lots of people don't know that those graphics exist even on phones or iPads with certain frames, 3D printed frames on top of it. I think is something that is it's very cool. And I want to then bring to how this look like. This is the Queen Jet, and again, this is in the same way that we will design the Queen Jet or any other spaceship for a game. We do it for the films. Each of those start with our department showing you a drawing, a model, similar to what I remember we were doing with Nintendo or Activision. You know, it's a similar pipeline. It's just a bit shorter in time. Um, but reminded me a lot on like having to understand what each one of those will do for the Quinjet. This is where we started testing their builds. We started to define exactly what goes where, and then once we put our graphics in it, you have there all of these elements. Some of them interactive as well, because you want the talent to be able not only to touch it and have like the light around their hands, but most importantly for the connection that they will have looking at those graphics. This is a good example on how actors can actually interact with the screens and enhance their performance being immersed in this technology. And this is an example with Prometheus. But why I'm saying all of this, because for Avengers the game, we did exactly the same thing. We did give each one, we work with Crystal Dynamics, and we give each of these factions, each of these characters a style, but also we allow them to in-game on those cinematics, and also in-game on the UI holograms that you keep finding in the game, you can see how it's connected to it. So it's almost as if we were shooting a film. We know where our hologram is or where our screen is, and we know exactly what's going to happen, especially in a cinematic, in an in-game UI is a bit more open. But as I was saying, each technology needs a different style, a different color, different ways to move, and all of the same process that I've been showing you now for how we did it for those films. Hey, we did exactly the same for the game, right? So I think it was an interesting way to link a film project like some of the Marvel film projects with a Marvel game project in this case. And it didn't stop there. Because of our CGI artists, we do things like this. We worked in the introduction for the game. But the best part of this is that you getting their game assets and you just dial it up, because we could pre-render those, so we could dial up all of the textures using the same geometry, but just like, you know, a little bit more of a freedom with polygons. And after the intro, then you have the title sequence, which we find a place where we starting to add a lot of value into these games, because this title sequence is perfect for setting a narrative for the games. You will hear here.
5 years ago, the Avengers paraded dangerous, untested technology, causing damage on an unprecedented scale.
So
our beloved Captain America was killed during the attempted...
We talking to the audience, we telling them the story that they're gonna get into, and you can watch this in our in our website. So I don't want to spoil it, but it's a good way to tell a story, title sequences. So I want to just touch on Ready Player One and connect it to one of our virtual reality game projects, because here is like Ready Player One. What a better project to work on. It's a film about games. It's all based on games. It's all based on this virtual reality. And I think it's almost like this new medium exploded into a Spielberg film, which is amazing. And we had lots of fun with it. And the first thing that I wanted to talk about is the visors, because of course, these visors are our heads-up displays, but we had to design them in a way that helped that point of view storytelling be seen from a third-person view. So it was an interesting challenge with designing these systems both from the outside and the inside perspective. And you will see later on how it doesn't stop there; it goes into 3D. I think this is a very relevant, because for all of these games that we do heads-up displays, we end up applying the same rules. And the same rules that we were talking about, personalization, apply to this too. This is Parsifal's heads-up display. Each one of these characters had a different one. So you got to find like a way to give each character like its own personalized colors, typographies, and whatnot. Again, bringing it back to what we were discussing right before in the previous case study. But the most exciting part of this is not only that we had to design it in a way that you could perceive what's happening from the outside, and also from the inside point of view, like first person and third person, but also we had to bring them into a 3D environment. How this visor now exist in that 3D environment, and it's helping these players interact with certain things. This is where, again, all of our work that we did with games, what we did with VR and AR became very, very relevant to this project. And we were building all of these, again, from that virtual reality mentality, even if it's for a game, right? For a film, sorry. It's putting yourself in that player's mindset, as we are gamers ourselves, and understanding what would be best and how we could solve this issue that covers certain key moments in the film. Of course, we were working with visual effects. In this case, was a solution because it's all integrated 3D, integrated holograms. We're working with ILM and Digital Domain, sending us these sort of plates. They doing what they do best. We do what we do best, covering narratives. As it sometimes easily explains through graphics, so you don't need to elaborate too much on what's happening if you can explain it through a graphic. And again, it's always, even if you look at final shots in the film, you can always identify these differentiators and why each character had not only its own color, its own way to do things, while maintaining that same graphical wrapper. This is a project that I want to compare a lot to another games project that we did, which is Jurassic World VR Expedition. This is what, again, apply what we learned from films, games, and experience, all of it to a real product that everyone will need to be able to understand and how to play it. And this is similar to also what we did with many of the films. You are creating a very, very complex narrative with it. As an example, The Martian, we did all of these graphics that need to look very, for The Martian, we need to do look very, very complex and very difficult to understand, because again, we're looking at giving this complex experience to a broader audience. And this is mainly what we do for films. When we were doing The Martian, we had to visualize very complex and in theory, very difficult to understand graphics, because this is like NASA in the future. But yet you still need to tell a story with these complex graphics that is very much like something that everyone can understand. You don't need to be an engineer to understand that graphic. It needs to be pretty much served on a plate, pretty much on the nose for the broader audience. So if my mom goes to the theater in the cinema and watch that, she will clearly understand that these guys are in danger or that they need to do this. This is the same with games that you bring to the broader audience, especially games that need to have this very complex look and feel, very technological. In this game, of course, we had to create lots of floating elements for VR, lots of dinosaurs, of course, but many more that I'm not going to touch on today. What I want to touch on is the main tool. Everything in this game is about tagging different dinosaurs, and most importantly, is that we were using hardware as a base to anchor their digital tools, like we've been doing all of our lives with our phones, with our keyboards, or our mouse. We always have that hardware anchor in order to interface with and interact with these digital walls. In this case, of course, the controllers were our solution. And we know that within that space on that controller, serving as a reticle, almost as if you were shooting but not shooting, tagging dinosaurs, we had to convey lots of information. So how we start? Well, we start this process with sketching and then solidifying certain sketches, like you can see here. And we look at everything, every single little detail, especially in such a small real estate, everything needs a function. So we're looking at that. We're looking at how then that translates to 3D, as you can see here, and how we can make sure that color can help understanding what's happening. And of course, color helped the experience. You can see here how these animations and how it worked in the game. It's allowing players' eyes to be focused on what's most important. It's all very functional. You can look at how many dinosaurs you tagged on that number on the top. You can see at the bottom how are your other competitors, teammates are doing, how many of them they tagged, and all with its own color code. And you will see later that we have a results screen designed for that with a color code. you need to be able to drive them to the location. So if you have your dinosaur more to the right, you're going to have that too. And of course, you can have the actions, the main actions of detection and actions of tagging different dinosaurs. I thought this was pretty much our real life Ready Player One visor, but in a game that ended up being in Universal theme parks, Dave and Buster's here in the US and whatnot. Of course, we create a lot of different and extra elements for these games and these experiences, from maps like this. Others are just more mission brief graphics, even like those result screens. Others are just like world building, more fictional screen graphics. And what you can see here once again is that we are applying the same rules. Everything needs to be part of that system. We're creating an operating system that is fake for the game, that serves some purposes, and others that are just mainly just to, build that world. But they are specific to that game. They are specific to that IP in the same way that they are specific to every new film or experience in games that we do. So lots of elements were built, of course. I want to jump into another one, a great game project that connects us very much to the automotive industry. And I want to tell why. And you can already start to see what this talk is about. It's like, from a multidisciplinary studio that doesn't do games only, we see opportunities to keep our vision very, very broad and like almost like open to new opportunities to disrupt, and for brands like, in this case, Forza, Microsoft, to own different things. In this case, we started with, yes, Forza redesign, new game, always risky because you have a fan base, but celebrating that sophisticated aesthetic from the game. If you look at menus, they are a book cover. You end up sometimes judging a book by its cover. This is the same. It's the very first time that you see, that you get into the game, you need to start feeling what this is about. In this case, it's about sophistication, elegance, high technology, racing cars. We do the same when we then had to look at heads-up display. The same simplicity, the same sophistication needs to be translated, not only stay on the front end in the menu, but also in the in-game experience. The important part of this project, or the most exciting one, at least for myself, when I was working on this, it was that we could create these infographics. We had the opportunity to push for creating infographics that are integrated with these game elements. So it's all over again how you take that virtual reality 3D integration mentality if you're working for a game that is like going to be locked on your TV screen, right? We have an opportunity that those 3D spaces are there, those 3D cars are there. Why our experience needs to be locked into a frame 2D? We can just bring that, all of this data, we can bring these infographics into the 3D area, and that end up becoming an important part of the game, which is Forza Vista. This was done before VR and AR were such a big thing amongst us, but it was hinting at the same opportunities back then already. So and the good thing is that now I want to show you is how this is now being integrated into the real world for us. We see how, in this case for Land Rover, you can start showing details inside of your vehicle. Also, always in a simplified way as much as you can. So your audience, which is whoever is driving that car, can understand the technologies like, again, Unreal Engine, Unity, real-time solutions, you name them. They are allowing us to bring these new possibilities to realities like what we see here. If there is something with your suspension, you actually should be able to see that, even if it's very simplified and it's telling you where the issue is. And this is things that we would bring from games. There's another game that we worked on, Need for Speed, and you guys can look at that on our website. But again, it's similar to Forza and similar to some of these racing games or car games. We see infographics, we see a menu display that it needs to have its own style, right? very different. Need for Speed, more grungy, underground than Forza. We have these infographics that need to be appearing on the screen as a heads-up displays. So I thought it was interesting to show it to you. These two card games, for example, are a good segue and seeing how some of the Forza and Forza Vista visualization was bringing new things to the industry. We see it now happening with cars. With Cadillac, we've been working for the last years with them and many transportation projects as well. But this one is for the upcoming Cadillac Lyric. And I wanted to mention because to me, like a game, you know, it's so similar. Like to have to drive a car, it's almost it's a game in itself. It's an experience. The great thing now is that we are seeing these screens getting larger. The real estate that this digital platform is gaining inside of those cars and automobiles is really taking the same importance as you have been having for years with interior design, exterior design. You have all of that Canva and the operating interactions for drivers and passengers experiences in cars are extremely similar to playing a video game. You have a controller, you're moving something, you're doing something for those seats. You have intros, menus. You can even have heads-up displays integrated with these UI controllers. There are augmented reality solutions on cars. Even operating your seat is its own experience, as you can see. They also need to tell a lot of vital information about what's happening in that reality. But you can see here introductions like you have in a game, modifying things, a controller showing you what's happening with that car while you have augmented reality here while you're parking. Everything starts to become very, very similar to an experience that we will be building for a game. The information around that car and what it's doing is the connection of technology with the human sort of aspect that we all carry with ourselves when we jump into a place that is digital, that is not our normal life indicators on battery. Anyway, I'll make sure that you see that you watch that project in our site. And this is a good segue for more cars. And this is a segue for design car. For the very first time, Territory, after 11 years of since ingestion, doing graphics and motion graphics and 3D CGI for these films, for these cars, for these games, of course, we decided that we've been working with games, and most of us some of us come from the games industry and understand how it works. Why not just do games ourselves? And this is what we've done with Design Car. It's the very, very first game that we did. It's a mobile game. And it's not that we just did the graphics or the intro or designed the menus. We just created the whole thing from scratch. And it's almost like after years of helping other studios design their UI experiences, we jumped into game development ourselves, starting with, yes, a mobile game. But I'm hoping that we can continue to prove that we can do this. And we definitely did. You should be able to download this if you're in the US and you have an iOS device for now. We're in our beta state. As you can see here, it's all about designing cars, as the name suggests. But we're doing the same thing that we've been doing for 11 years, right? What's the best way to design a car? What's the best way to interact? Soon it's going to be available worldwide, and I'm hoping that you guys can download it. It's a game about designing cars, as you probably guessed by the name. And we gave, again, a specific style, a specific personality, like we do for the films, like we do for the cars or the games. And please, it's just the beginning. We are going to be developing the game to something greater and bigger. And I know that we don't have much time, but I wanted to touch about a couple of other projects and mainly just jump into other ways to show you how we help games in other ways. This is a quick one. One of our first, at least one of my most exciting projects with games. It's way back when the PS Vita was a thing, but I love how we created all of these different mission briefs, and I'm hoping is that these cinematics that we were creating for them soon the same amount of fidelity, the same amount of details that you can see here, soon we can have it in our VR experiences. I think we're still a bit behind on what the technology can do. And if you put this, it's gonna probably be overloaded. But all I'm showing you here is this project is pretty old already, but I'm still aiming and hoping that one day we can see this amount of complexity into a VR or AR solution or game. I want to talk about props, logo designs, title sequences to wrap this up. Props, we have great 3D artists that are not only now helping film developments for them to create these props, but also doing the same with game developments that are happening, and art departments that they don't know how this is going to interact. Of course, we influence our the game with the UI and all these holograms, but we go beyond that and ask ourselves, okay, how does the hardware looks in these worlds, right? What's going to trigger this UI experience? So we do that too. And again, each one has its personalities and different styles. And we're starting to deliver now with again, real-time engines, more finalized props for some of these games. It's great to create for this digital world. We also feel very relevant that we can, the digital transformations of our societies and what we're experiencing, we feel like we have something to do there, and that is impacting people's lives, again, with cars, but also with games and new worlds. Another way that we, as a creative studio, we help companies and studios find their personality and style, not only the games. And we do this thanks to these animations for logos. We did many of them, as you will see. And one of the big ones for us was this one, Cyberpunk, where we helped CD Projekt Red with their logo animations, not only for this, but also in other languages and whatnot. So very, very exciting to continue to see our 3D and motion graphics capabilities help games outside of the game elements. And I thought it was appropriate to finish my presentation with a credit sequence, and one of our most recent game projects. Title sequences, again, are a great opportunity for games. And in this case, there's no difference on how we will approach a title sequence for a film to what we will do with the game. I'm going to show you a couple of first shots, and then I'll show you where we started with the designs and a little bit of a behind the scenes as well. You can watch that in our website, and definitely, as you can see, we work with those CGI characters and environments we ingested from the game development team, but we all start with a sketch, and this is some of the early concepts, as you can see here, that we were presenting, different types of treatments, some of them more grungy, some of them a little bit more cinematic, or like playing a lot with colors, as you can see here. And those are just like early frames, seeing how we could avoid staying in one same color palette, and just, again, give each one of these characters its moments and its moment, the color that will carry within the game. And again, this is for a credit title at the end. So you guys, if you play the game, you already seen some of these moments. So it's celebrating those moments, bringing textures, lighting into that cinematic space. Even for this, like grinding into color again and again and again until you get it right. This is a behind the scenes that I wanna play with you. So you can see here from the mesh, the camera position, camera movements. applying the different layers, rendering it all, depositing those layers. Lovely. So I thought that with the title sequence, especially a credit title sequence like this, was a good way to wrap this up today. I have to say, shukran, thank you. Thanks everyone for your time today, staying with me all the way until the end. I hope you all enjoyed a glance of what Territory Studio has been working on and what we do and how we approach our creative process from that multidisciplinary, not only pool talent, but also like mentality on how to approach creative industries like the games one. And I will invite everyone to, of course, have a look at our website and check our work. Get in touch with us in any platform, but by those tags here, handles Territory Studio and my name, Marti Romances. Always more than happy to answer questions and interact with every single one of you. So I hope you enjoy the rest of the event. And yeah, thanks again. Have a nice one. Bye.